We like to mirror the product, the user journey to the user's preferred buying process. We don't really want to give them forms for feedback, and we don't want to put things in front of the user in that journey that's going to create friction. Rather, we create a journey that mirrors how they want to review a product and takes them through their process as quickly as possible so that they can validate or determine whether this product is the best fit for them.
Hello, and welcome back to After the Valley, the podcast where we explore the journeys of entrepreneurs, innovators, and creators shaping the SaaS landscape and beyond. I'm your host, Pratik Panda, and today we are thrilled to be joined by Peter Loving, a product design visionary and the founder of UserActive, a UI and UX design agency dedicated to enhancing SaaS experiences. Peter founded UserActive with a mission to help B2B SaaS companies elevate their product experiences and drive growth through thoughtful, user-centric design. Using the unique subscription-based model, UserActive doesn't just provide design solutions, it becomes an integral part and extension of your SaaS team. Peter is also passionate about sharing insights with the SaaS community, helping founders and designers tackle the unique challenges of scaling. He runs an active community of over 15,000 members, and we are very excited to have him here to share his learnings and experiences. Peter, great to have you on the show.
Great. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's get started by knowing you a little bit more. Can you tell me about your background, where were you born, where were you brought up, what was your environment like, and what's gotten you to where you are today?
Well, I'm from the UK, from London, and I grew up there. I'm currently based in Barcelona, but we can talk about that a little bit more later. I feel I identified myself as a creative person very early on. I've always been interested and very engaged in creative topics and activities. Design was something that stood out to me as a really great field that was very engaging for me. I also enjoy some other aspects of the arts, so music, arts, literature. So most creative topics I excelled at in school. For me, my direction through working through career, it's design that appealed to me, and I went through to study design at university. Once I finished my university studies, I worked in the field of design. I translated from being in the product design sector in industrial design, so 3D products, consumer product design, and I transferred over to designing for the web, for digital. So that was at the beginning of my career when I finished university, and I've been designing in the digital space for 20 years now, and also run UserActive design agency for B2B SaaS. So that's my background, and my interest in creative activities in the creative field is what brought me into design and subsequently to launching my agency.
That's amazing. I have a few follow-up questions. One is, you did mention that you studied design in university. Since you've gone to university to study design, do you think a formal education in design is necessary to build a good career in design? Or what would be your advice to people who are young and still starting out in the field of design?
Yeah, for design, because it's a trade, a craft and a skill, I see qualifications in design as very valuable. You certainly can have self-taught designers, but my background in design through academic studies in university, it taught me some really strong design thinking, design principles, design processes, which stayed with me throughout my whole working career. We also hire a lot of designers, so I go through screening candidates, reviewing their CVs and portfolios. Quite consistently, the top designers have some kind of qualification or education in design. They come from a design background. Most often that could be a university degree in some design discipline, but often we find good candidates who've gone through a UI, UX or product design bootcamp, and they've done some intensive course or studying. And at least then they have the grounding for good design thinking and good design principles and theory. We find it very difficult to take a candidate who doesn't have that and train them, because that takes a big investment and often some resistance to the design thinking from a candidate who hasn't been exposed to it before. I would advise on a formal qualification. It doesn't have to be a university degree, although they are very good. the principles, the theories of design processes, and our understanding of design thinking, how to communicate your designs. A lot of those strong skills come from a good academic background.
Awesome. Talking about principles of design, can you share something about design that seems pretty obvious, but people tend to miss it very often? Like often people might think it being a very obvious thing, but maybe it's not. Anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, I would say like the thing that stands out to me most of all is about simplicity in design.
Yeah.
People who are interested in design and they want to become good designers have or understand this skill completely. And they quite often misinterpret it. Quite often a designer who hasn't got a lot of theory and background and skills will try to style something. They go for stylizing something, and they might make something look very styled in a certain way, but that's not necessarily good design. Often that can contribute to bad design. What's very difficult is to make something simple, but also make it very usable and enjoyable and easy to use. So the functionality being simple and easy to use, and the form of something being very intuitive, not confusing at all to use. A good example of this might be some of the design that Apple has been doing for the last 2 decades, from the iMacs to the iPads to the iPhones. The products themselves are incredibly simple. The tablets and everything, they're really just a screen and casing. But to design something that simple with good functionality is an incredibly difficult task, and it takes a lot of design iterations and hard work. That's really the key to having something that's well designed and simple is a big part of our challenge, and it often gets overlooked or underestimated.
Yeah, the moment you said that, one thing came to my mind, and it's covered heavily in this book called The Design of Everyday Things. They talk about the door. If you have to write whether somebody has to pull or push the door, then that itself beats the purpose of good design. If you have to tell people how to use a door, it means that you've not built it simple enough.
Exactly. So for people who have an interest in design, they might read this book. In university, we were given this book as part of our syllabus. We all read that book, and that's what I mean about having the academic background. You learn the core principles of design.
Right.
One of those is in the form of something should tell you how to use it. The way that it's designed and the way it looks should make it intuitive for your brain to push on a door rather than pull. And we've all come across doors where you push or pull and find out that you try to push when you can only pull. And sometimes they have a sign. That's part of design thinking, that it's good to learn some of those simple lessons and theories.
That's awesome. You worked with a lot of SaaS founders, and I've worked with a lot of SaaS founders, primarily helping them on the marketing side. I've also experienced this, that they are amazing as far as their technical strengths are concerned, but more often than not, they invest a lot of their mental bandwidth into the technicality of the product and often miss out on how do you message it for your audience, or maybe in your experience, how do you make it more usable? Have you had any experiences as such where you've come across amazing products technically, but very poor usability, and that's what is hampering growth?
The outcome of some of our work, we measure the impact that we've had on behavioral metrics and usability metrics. The impact of our work usually helps software founders to increase signups, improve utilization, improve conversion rates such as free trials or paid conversions, or account expansion. So we can measure the impact of design with these things, but ultimately what we're doing is taking a product, making it much more enjoyable to use, better to look at, easy to understand, and more intuitive.
That's great. Let's take one of those examples because it might help the audience understand a little bit more about how to think about design. Let's say somebody comes to you with the idea that they want to know whether their free trial to paid conversion is good enough or not, and then figure out a way to increase the amount of conversions they get from free trial to paid. When they come to you, what would you typically start to see, and what are some metrics you start measuring to get a sense of where they are at? And then how do you think about what areas to improve on?
So What we usually do is there's some form of review or audit through the software. We spend a few sessions together getting to know the product and understanding the sign-up flow. This is how users go through the product. And we basically make observations and suggestions on things to improve. It's quite easy for us to identify areas, issues, because we're very familiar with best practice, good user flows for SaaS. And what we then do is look for areas which we perceive will have the biggest negative impact on their conversion rates. So typical things that we look out for is, how is the onboarding? Is the onboarding good? Is it engaging? Does it help users to understand the value in the product? Does it help them to experience the value in a product quickly and easily? And we also look at, what is the product experience like when a user lands in the product after they've signed up and they're free to start using the product and going through tasks and workflows. We find when there's a lot of friction, or when things are confusing, or when the design, the UX is not very intuitive, or it's hard for users to understand what the best features are or how to find those features. All of these things have a big impact. So we're really just applying our kind of blueprint of what makes a really great onboarding and usable product, and applying that to each SaaS company we come across. Sometimes we see areas where we can make a huge impact and redesign those particular elements of the product and measure the rates. So some of our metrics that we measure in SaaS, they can measure a lot of metrics in their product, but we like to keep it simple. We like to sometimes view session recordings, but we also look at the main conversion rates, free trial to paid, what activity they're doing during their free trial, how much time they're spending in the software, how many times they're logging in. These simple metrics can tell us a lot.
That's interesting. Do you have any tips on, this is coming from an experience, and I've heard other marketers and product folks also deal with this. A lot of times you have a variety of free trial users, you're observing their sessions, and you want to reach out to a few people, you're struggling to get responses. Are there any design methods in product that can encourage feedback collection, or a way for people to get on a call? Like, you want to talk to them about what's not working for them. How do you do that more effectively?
That depends on your model. So the two main models are a sales-led approach or a product-led approach. With a sales-led approach, you have much more face-to-face time, more points of contact. So that might go through demos, through sales calls, and then you're also doing onboarding, the customer success. So usually you have a higher kind of touch approach, and you are able to understand your prospects' concerns and objections as they come up. With a product-led approach, we're really making the product do the heavy lifting of taking users through that journey. What we like to do is mirror the product, the user journey to the user's preferred buying process. We don't really want to give them forms for feedback, and we don't want to put things in front of the user in that journey that's going to create friction. Rather, we create a journey that mirrors how they want to review a product and takes them through their process as quickly as possible so that they can determine whether this product is the best fit for them. It's great to get feedback, but we don't want to get feedback at the expense of the product experience and friction. So what do? We might incentivize the user based on things that are of value to them. Could we offer them a free 20-minute setup call or onboarding call where we provide them with support to help them get their account set up? Is there any kind of free features that we can let them try that they can get value from to figure out if this product is the right choice for them? So we take that route rather than the requesting information and trying to get feedback from them. We want to leave it in the hands of the user to validate if this product is the right choice or not for them. And by understanding the user completely and what they want to achieve, we can design the product so that it does fulfill their requirements and leads towards them selecting that product over the competitors in the market.
I think that was very helpful. Peter, let's switch gears a little bit. You did mention the fact that you are currently based in Barcelona. What got you to Barcelona? You grew up in London. It's one of the most metropolitan cities in the world. What encouraged you to move?
So like you say, London, it's a great place to live and grow up. If you're from London, you can spend a lot of time living there. You have your life in the city and your friends and social group. People who move there in their adult life, they usually, what I've noticed is they stay for, say, 2 or 3 years and then move because the fast pace of London life is a great experience, but not everybody wants to have that long term. So I did live there most of my life until I was around 34 years old. And then I decided that I would work very intensive, long hours, have a quite a demanding working week, but also a busy social life. And you're always in this fast paced metropolis kind of city. And I got to a point in life where I wanted to change from that. So I wanted something a little more, how could we say, a more relaxed lifestyle with more outdoors, more time outside with a better climate and better weather. I have family background from Barcelona, so my mum's actually from here. And for me, it made sense as a place to relocate to. Just has a slightly slower pace of life, a healthier lifestyle, I think, and more opportunities to be outdoors and active than I found in London. So it just felt like a good move for me at that time.
As business owners, we tend to make a lot of decisions based on what's going to be useful for the business. Do you think by implanting yourself in this environment that is more slow paced, more relaxed, more outdoors, more outdoor time, does it help you work better as an entrepreneur?
Have been some aspects that have been a lot better. I think there's a healthier balance. I also feel healthier physically with the ability to be outdoors and more unactive. You certainly have that in London, but it takes a bit more discipline. And based on weather, you tend to spend more time in the gym, and the culture in London is more around work and social. People would go for a drink. The drinking culture is much more prevalent in London. Physically healthier, I definitely feel that's more here in Barcelona. Also, just having more of a slower pace, I think that's also good for entrepreneurs because you have more of a conducive environment to reflecting or having time outside of work. Not everything's super fast paced. So it also means your working life can adapt a little bit. You can be more thoughtful. However, I found some challenges with it too. Definitely London is a much better city to start a business and network. And I find that potentially would be much easier for an agency to be based there. And also culturally, the pace of work, from my experience of Spanish companies and the working culture, is a little different. We're much faster paced,
Yes.
and I feel like decisions and things move faster for businesses in London and the UK. There's a bit of a trade-off there. But one thing that helped balance that out for us is that we focus on SaaS, and it means that our niche has a global customer base. So when I was in London, a lot of business came from network and contacts and being in the environment where we're working with corporate companies. However, since I've been here, most of our customers come from online activities, digital marketing, outreach, and we don't get to meet them as much. We work more through Zoom or Google Meet. It means that we've had more of a global reach. So yeah, there's trade-offs, but overall, I'm much happier with the move, and it just was at the right time as well at that stage for me.
That's amazing. I've been to Barcelona once and it was definitely one of my favorite places. But it's been a while. It was maybe about 8 years ago, 10 years ago. Hopefully, another trip is on the cards soon. Tell me a little bit about the agency business, right? It's hard, it's grueling, customers come and go. What are some tips for agency founders to make the businesses stand out? What are you doing to make yourself stand out and make yourself more resilient?
That's a really good question because I think this type of business is particularly challenging to run. You have high fixed costs because you employ a workforce. That is the majority of the overhead. There's always a demand to find new clients, replace clients as contracts finish or come to an end. They're generally high ticket projects. So the things to keep in mind is definitely finding a good route to market that works for you, that you can get a reliable stream of leads. And understand your close rate. If you have 30 leads, how many of those turns into good sales opportunities, and then how many do you close? And finding good channels that help you make that consistent. For me, that's been the hardest part of running this business. And it always, I never feel like it's completely solved. That's where I think certainly a place for me where I put a lot of emphasis and a lot of priority. The other side to this is making sure that the delivery is really high quality and you're delivering a great service. So we're focusing on really those two areas. It's like the route to market, the customer acquisition, but also the fulfillment, making sure that we do a great job so customers are really happy with us. To answer your point about how we stand out, I think the key area for that is niching as much as you can, to finding a really good niche and focusing on that niche and always going deeper to focus on one key message or one key problem that makes you stand out. Because the agency world is very competitive. There are many agencies, but if you are focusing on one specific thing, then you don't really compete with all the other agencies. You're just really building out your own value that you bring. And that's what we've worked on to achieve that also.
And that's great advice, Peter. Thanks for sharing that. From a design perspective, do you think there is a timing where you start investing more heavily into design? Or is this something that should be like whatever, Daisy principle?
What I see is software companies often start building a product and they start off with a technical team with engineers. They need to get their product out into the market. They want to see if they can sign up customers, if they can start to grow and get some traction and what we call product market fit. If they can get to that stage, they start getting revenue. They also might look for funding. Either they go the bootstrapped route where they invest with their own money and they try to build based on customer revenues, which is challenging. You always need investment for a product business. What we've seen is that software companies usually, if they have a technical team, they've started off with engineers, they usually need to engage with design around the seed stage because they will have a product that is functional. Technically, it could be really strong, but it might not have the best UI, UX. And some of the early customers start to notice that, and the team will start to prioritize design. In bootstrapped companies, we see that may come a little later down the line as they take a little longer to build that revenue. And for companies that have a sensibility for design, maybe they have a founder who has a background or an appreciation for design, they will try to engage with that and prioritize that sooner as well. But generally what we see is around the seed stage funding period.
That's interesting to know. You did share an example from Apple about good design. Are there any SaaS products that you take a lot of design inspiration from that you think are really well designed?
Yeah, we tend to really look at some of the industry leaders because, they'll have big budgets that they can spend on talented product design teams. They've got great product teams, great designers. Ones that we like on our team are the usual kind of software companies that everybody aspires to. So products like Notion, ClickUp, Monday, tools like that. We also like Loom. They have good UI UX. Certainly ClickUp and Monday are complex products. So to maintain a good UI and good user experience gets more and more challenging the more complex the product is. But the products with less functionality and features like Loom or Calendly, keeping the design simple, but also having an appealing, easy to use interface. We like the way that they've managed to maintain that. Also, Notion has quite a clean design, and it has heaps of functionality and features, but the UI is pretty intuitive and pretty neat and tidy.
Yeah. Have you had any experience helping out a customer reduce churn using design?
So we've done product improvements to help make the product stickier, help provide a better user experience so that companies stick with the product longer. We've also designed some cancellation flows. When users are thinking about canceling or they want to explore it, we've designed some flows to see if we can provide them with support and resolve any challenges they're having so they don't necessarily go through with their cancellation process. And if they really want to cancel, we also would ideally like to get some feedback from them. So that's how we've had some experience there too.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Peter. As we come to the end of this session, I want to ask you something fairly unconventional. If you had the chance to take someone out to lunch or dinner, who would that person be and why?
Okay, so from a design context, I think it would be Johnny Ive from Apple because he came from a traditional product design background. He studied industrial product design at university. And then his experience at Apple, some of his designs were observed by Steve Jobs, who started to get into discussions with Johnny Ive about designing the iMac, and they released the new colorful versions. There were iMacs in all different colors and the transparent, see-through
Yeah.
iMacs tinted with the different colors. So that was a really pivotal moment in Apple when Steve Jobs returned to the company, and later they really doubled down on their prioritization of great product design. And I think that made all the difference. Since then, Johnny and I have had a huge pivotal impact in the design ethos at Apple. So it'd be interesting to hear from him about that.
That's amazing. Can you think of someone non-design also?
Non-design would be good. Does it have to be somebody alive, or does it have to be somebody living?
Not necessarily. If you could go back in time, it could be somebody who's not living anymore.
One of my other passions that I really love is music. So I think I would pick one of the musicians that has made a big impact on me from appreciating their music and creativity. So I'd probably pick one of the Beatles, and I think I'd pick John Lennon.
That's amazing. Do you know what you would ask him?
I'd ask him how he wrote the song Imagine. What was the inspiration?
Yeah.
How did that song come to him?
You mentioned when we started off the conversation that ever since your early childhood, you had this inclination towards creative activities, right? Do you think there was something that helped you sort of sharpen that, or do you think that was innate in you?
I think that if I look at my family background, there are creative people, there are art directors, architects, photographers. So there seems to be a creative streak in my family. Also, I think my parents were also had passion for literature and art and music. So as a young person, I think I was exposed to a lot of those, that kind of subject matter and those kind of fields. And that definitely, I think that had an impact on my appreciation for creativity in the arts. And also when I found an interest in it, it certainly felt encouraged or natural to pursue it. I also feel that somehow the way I think and the way my brain operates means that I'm well suited to creative tasks and problem solving. It seems to come naturally for me. Whereas more practical subjects that don't have the creative element, I struggle with those kind of tasks much more. So I definitely think I'm more inclined to creative tasks. Probably I perform better in creative tasks than practical non-creative tasks.
All right, thanks for sharing, Peter. As we wrap up, do you have any last piece of advice for SaaS founders listening to this, especially about design?
About design, think about design as early as you can afford to. And also, when you do think about design, think about it from the context of making life easier for the user, designing for them what would be a good experience for them, removing any thinking difficulty or challenge they might have in using your software. So that takes skill to be able to think and do that, but definitely designing from the point of view is bringing value that you can to the user. sometimes people design thinking about what they would like from the user. So they try to guide them through paying or something else, but we want to really give them a great experience with a product. So that, I think that'll be my advice from design. Advice sort of for SaaS founders in other areas. I mean, I have never built and run a software company, so those are not skills that I'm able to advise on, but certainly for design, we do it day in, day out, and I can always give great advice on design.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Peter. This was a great conversation. Thank you so much for taking out time. I'm sure people listening to this episode have taken a lot of bits of information that can be very actionable. Thank you so much again for spending time with us.
Yeah, thank you, Pratik. I really enjoyed the conversation and appreciated some of your questions there, that not just focusing on design and career, but also a bit of background. So that was fun. Thank you for having me.
And that wraps up today's episode. Before we sign off, I would like to thank you for your support and thanks for tuning in. If you loved today's episode, then don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and never miss an episode. Be kind, be happy, challenge the norm. I'll see you folks again for the next one.